All right, Amber. Well, welcome back. This is a sad session, but a happy session. This is our last session together. Um, so in the past, we've talked about your sister, we've talked about your family, and kind of like childhood um, instances, and we even set goals to um, further you and your sister's relationship and kind of also reflect on what kind of happened to you as a child. And so, how are you feeling?
Good, pretty good. I feel like I have a lot of good tools to use after we get out of therapy. I feel like I can really like strive towards that goal still of like cultivating that relationship. Like even though I know it'll still be hard because I'll still be here, but I feel like I've gained some really good tools to like go forward and really like further our relationship.
Elaborate on some tools that we've talked about.
So I think a lot of it is just like knowing that, yeah, you're busy, but like that relationship is still very important.
Yep.
And not really like using, oh, I'm busy, like as an excuse. Because then there's kind of a lot of like guilt that comes with that. Like we've talked a lot about guilt. And I think like overcoming that and knowing like, no, being busy is just an explanation. It's not an excuse really. I think sometimes I can get in the habit of using everything as an excuse, or thinking that everything is an excuse when really it's just the reality of it.
Okay.
So I think that's a big thing.
Do you mean like if your sister wants to hang out or see you, you would kind of be like, I'm busy? Is that like, are you really busy, or are you just kind of saying that because you don't want
No,
to see
I
them?
think I would really be busy because I think we've talked about before, like being here is already part of like being busy. You know, like when I'm here, I have school, I have work, everything like that, and I can't always just like hop 3.5 hours home to go hang out with anyone. So I think it genuinely comes from a place of being busy. So yeah, and there's kind of like a lot that comes with that, but
So making her a priority is kind of what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Is one kind of thing that you realized.
Yeah. And I think like even going like beyond just that, like kind of almost compartmentalizing like what happened like when we were younger and not like dwelling on that, I guess.
Okay.
Because I think that if I dwell on it too much, then it makes me like mad at my parents. And like we've talked about that a lot.
Yep.
And these sessions have really been good for me to like talk that out because we never talked it out before. So although they're not like here, I think I was able to really talk about it and like convince myself, I guess. That's kind of bad. But like convince myself that like, yeah, what happened like was really bad, but now moving forward, this is the goal, like to become like better friends with her, better sisters and things like that. So yeah.
So reflecting on the emotions and feelings coming up from your childhood, you said you kind of feel like anger when you talk about it. Did you feel that in these sessions?
Yeah, for sure. Especially when I think about like what my sister went through. Like that makes me.
I've definitely noticed that you put yourself in her shoes, and you've actually done that multiple times with her.
Yeah.
In different situations.
Yeah, and I know like I shouldn't do that because it wasn't anything that I did like when we were younger that made it happen. You know what I mean? So.
So you don't want to feel responsible, but sometimes
and
you
that's,
feel responsible.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I've learned like through these sessions is I wasn't responsible for all of that.
Yeah.
Even though it happened, but it was really like my parents, and then that's where the anger can come from.
Okay, so you're able to kind of step out from this feeling of guilt, look in and realize, oh, stop looking at me, you know?
Yeah.
And then it goes to your parents.
Yeah, and I think that I've like learned some good techniques to like not dwell too much on being mad at them, but dwelling more on they had to make a decision, and then sure they probably didn't make the right decision, but I mean if they hadn't made the decision they did, like a lot of things would not be the way that they are. Like I might not even be here, you know.
So how you're changing your narrative or your feelings towards being mad at your parents is changing your perspective of your parents.
Yeah,
that's really good.
Mm-hmm. I think that's probably the biggest thing that I've gotten, because for a long time I've always known that, like, yeah, I need to cultivate that relationship with my sister, but like that's sometimes easier said than done when you're not living in the same town as them and when you're not already close to them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I've really just like mostly learned that, like, how to like handle my thoughts about my parents and the things that they went through in that situation.
So my question is, do you agree? So putting yourself maybe in their shoes or learning to live with the decision that they made, do you agree with the decision that they made or back then?
I think that's a loaded question.
Okay.
Because no.
Okay.
Because like the decision that they made affected my sister so much, like not so much me and my brother. But there were like 50 different things that they could have done. And most of those, like my parents' plan was to always just have like 2 kids. So those 2 kids would have been my brother and my sister. So I probably wouldn't even have been like born.
That's true.
So looking at it that way, it's like, well, is that selfish to think that?
No. How can you be selfish in your own birth?
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Don't be selfish. Okay, you're not born. You don't exist. Like,
right. You wouldn't even be able to feel selfish if you weren't born.
Right. Exactly. I guess my question is, do you? I guess maybe agree wasn't the word I should have used. Disagree is the word I should have used. Do you disagree with the decision that they made? Even though you're changing the narrative to be okay with the decision that they made, deep down, do you still are like, I disagree?
I think I disagree with the way that they handled it.
Okay.
I think they could have handled it in a way that, so they were completely separate. You know, like I talked, like we didn't even know about her until she was already 16.
Mm-hmm.
So my dad had completely split himself from that situation too. So there could have been an option there to keep some form of custody where we could have seen her but still been like separate, I guess, if that makes sense. Like her
like live with her dad, your dad,
or do some kind of custody agreement that said, okay, part-time with grandparents, the other part with dad, which would have consisted of my mom and then us too. Well, just my brother at that point. So I think that there were some other options that they could have like researched,
right?
But they didn't.
Right.
So I think in a way, no, I don't agree, and I do kind of disagree with it. But I think I've learned that I can't change it.
I think that's a great perspective because it's positive perspective. And through this perspective, does it allow you to look at your dad in a more forgiving, understanding way?
I think so. Especially if I talk to my mom about it more. Like, she is the epitome of grace and forgiveness. Like, through everything that she's done, it's insane.
And you learned, I'm assuming that's where you learned it from.
Yeah. Even though sometimes I find myself, like, not having enough grace.
Yeah, that's everybody. Yeah. Only Jesus has enough grace for us.
That's true. And that's where she gets her grace from, for sure.
Yeah. Your mom is a very, like, intense, like, story from what I hear from you.
Yeah.
I lost where my train of thought was. But, oh yes,
I feel that.
You did this before when it came to your sister and your worldviews. I just want to point it out that you very much you're willing to like understand someone, put yourself in their shoes, and you don't necessarily change your beliefs, but you're able to like show empathy, and you're able to change negative emotions about them. You know, your sister and you didn't have a really positive relationship at first, just because you guys were so different, kind of judging each other.
Mm-hmm.
And then you kind of went to college, experienced life, and then that kind of changed, and you changed your worldview. And then now it's like you're changing your narrative to better relationship, or to have better peace, actually, in yourself.
Yeah, that's a pretty good summary of what it feels like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think there was definitely like an intense amount of judgment there. But a lot of it came from her, like not placing blame on her at all.
Mm-hmm.
But like she just, like there was a lot of animosity there, like towards my brother and I.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was really easy for her to like pick us apart. But I think we've gotten through that.
Pick you apart, look at you differently?
Yeah.
Like separate people?
Yeah. And like anything we would say. So like I was raised as my brother, so sometimes I'll say things like, "Oh, me and my brother," when I'm talking to my sister. When in reality,
and she would get offended? Okay.
Big time. And she'd be like, he's our dad, and he's our brother, you know, like things like that. And I'd be like, I didn't even notice I said that.
Yeah.
Like, because it's just normal for me to be telling people, he's my dad, he's my brother, like.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there was a lot of judgment that came from that, but we have gotten through that, thank goodness. But a lot of that happened after she had kids, and I'm not really sure what changed. I guess I tried.
Well, kids can make you change. Mm-hmm. I've heard that like a bunch of times.
Yeah, and so she kind of started to like settle down a little bit, and like we were at different points in our life. Well, we still are at different points in our lives. Like she has 2 kids, and I think that like my nephew being born kind of made me like really want to have like a stronger relationship with her.
Yep, I remember.
Which kind of made a lot of that other stuff like get pushed to the side, which kind of like paved a way for like a healthier relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I heard kids totally change your perspective, especially as a mother. And yeah, you guys are growing. And I think that was definitely a major goal in this, and a major, like, a lot of pain that you have shared with me came from a lack of this relationship. Do you have any fears for the future?
I think I mentioned that her husband went into the Navy.
Yep.
So that is a big like fear-based thing right there.
For you or for her?
For me, because one of the bases that they can go to is in Washington State.
Right.
Like that's a long ways away. I mean, like
13.
They can't even come visit me here.
Right.
So going to visit them in like Washington State is like.
So her leaving is like a fear of you, for you.
Yeah, and I'm afraid that like all the progress that we've gotten here and like her and I like cultivating that relationship might like dwindle away a little bit if she's further away. But then again, like she also has her kids, and I don't want to miss too much of their life. So I think that would make me like really want to like go out of my way to go visit them or FaceTime them or whatever.
Everything you just said is like a goal, basically. Long distance is hard for any family, but it sounds like you already are thinking of ways that you're going to stay in touch, and like encouraging you to actually do it, encouraging you to maybe have this conversation with your sister will not only, bring down your fear, but it will raise that need and that drive to be in a relationship with your sister. And I'm really happy for you, and I think you're going to do great. And you and your sister have a long, beautiful road to go.
Yes.
So yeah, that's it.
Cool.